In my 20s, I discovered credit cards and store cards and generally access to money quite easily. So through my 20s, I enjoyed my life, to the fullest extent, almost sex, drugs and rock and roll, and absolutely loved my 20s, but ran up huge debts. For me, it got to a point where I'd be frightened of the phone ringing, post coming through the door. So we literally had no money at all. And I just got to a point where you thought, I just can't live like this any longer. I've got to do something about it. So I read an article about a dad, very similar age to me, and 2 young children. And because of his debt, which was about half the debt I had, committed suicide. He saw no other way out of it. And I thought, I just can't get to that place. But I also knew that if I didn't do something about it, then I was I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. But I decided to take a more practical view in terms of actually try and get some help around it, as embarrassing and awkward as it was at the time. And I felt I'd let so many people down. I felt completely worthless. At the age of 31, I'd met my wife. We'd had a son, and my wife wanted to get my son christened. And I said, yeah, that's fine, we'll do it. Obviously, I had no church background, so it made no difference to me. She then announced we had to go to a meeting about it and meet the vicar and talk about it, which I reluctantly went to. Off the back of that meeting and having to look at these vows I was going to be saying, I decided to do an Alpha course. And I think I was probably the most problematic participant they'd had in the 10 years they'd run Alpha. And I used to research all the awkward questions I could research to take. But over the course of those weeks and those questions being answered, I found myself wondering what this was all about, whether there was something genuine about it. And I can remember 2 weeks after the Alpha course had finished, I was at the gym and I'm on the treadmill and I'm thinking, right, what's the worst? If I say this prayer of commitment, what's the worst that can happen? Either nothing will happen because it's all a load of rubbish, or something will happen. So I got off the treadmill, got dressed, it was chucking down with rain, pitch black. I sat in my car and I said this prayer of commitment and kind of looked up for a bolt of lightning. And of course nothing happened. And then 3 months later I was in Jongleurs, a nightclub in Portsmouth, and the comedian was effing this and Jesus that, and I got up and walked out. There was just something about what he was saying that just didn't sit right. And then about 3 months after that, people were saying to me, there's something different about you. And for me, that was the first point that for me that I thought, actually, so there's something about being a Christian, there's something about Jesus, there's something about this that I need to look into further. I got to a point where I looked at it on a spreadsheet, and when I looked at the interest repayments, and I could see it would take me over 99 years to pay the debt back. I kind of thought, actually, I need to get hold of this. And I'd heard a phrase that said, get hold of your money before your money gets hold of you. And that phrase really stuck in my head. And I decided, right, I need to do something about it. And I thought the only route would be bankruptcy. I thought that'd probably be the only way out of it, because I didn't earn a significant amount of money at the time. And for me, I felt that was probably the only option. So I started to look into ways of either clearing my debt or just looking at my options, really. And the route for me was an organisation called CAP, Christians Against Poverty. And I'd met a lady and a gentleman called Keith and Beryl from a church in Fareham, and there was just something really honest. They didn't look down on me at all. They treated me as as a normal human being. CAP were able to put a plan together to help me reduce the debt over the course of 5 years. I think for me, if I was to encourage anyone today that are in a similar situation, is that I'm now 10 years on from when I first took hold of that debt. And I think back now, if I'd stayed with that spreadsheet of 99 years, I would never have cleared that debt. The reality is, 10 years later, £56,000 worth of debt, I am debt free.